right then, let's start. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Quality Time with Daikon AI. We're going to talk about how technology is reshaping quality, how it helps quality teams to deliver impact, to work, to think, to bring really the value to the pharmaceutical or medical devices operations. And I will introduce myself. I'm Nikolai Makaranka, founder and CEO of Daikon AI. And I'm today joined by Burak Begen, who has had a very accomplished career in the quality space and also happened to be an advisor at Daikon AI. Burak, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Nikolai. So I'm really excited to be here as well and talk about quality, which is my passion for over 20 years now. So I've been in the industry for over 2 decades. And what has always driven me is my interest in changing quality from a compliance obligation to a strategic business enabler, a good business partner for the companies. And with that in mind, I went through different companies at leadership roles. And in all of them, what stood out is my interest in both culture and systems, how we can improve both so that we can really enable the company to achieve sustainable performance in long term. So I'm glad to be here talking about the topics, and let's get it started.
Yeah, thank you very much, Burak, and we're very happy to have you. So we want to discuss today how AI redesigns quality work. But before delving into this sort of very technology-oriented discussion, I wanted first to explore this very, I think, ingrained stereotype that you cannot get both compliance and speed. And that's like it's everywhere, and especially in the quality space, that's almost like a mantra. And I wanted to ask you, where do you think this kind of mindset is coming from, and what do you think about where it can lead and where it leads actually teams and quality?
It's a very good question, and it is still asked in the industry. The reason is it's really rooted in the history of the biopharma sector. For decades, compliance was looked at like equated with control and documentation, while we look at speed tied to flexibility and innovation. We always looked at it as like opposing factors to each other, which is a very dangerous way of thinking, because if you think the real examples, poor compliance leads to a lot of friction, or critical deviations, delays in releases, recalls. All of these are a result of poor compliance. And when you look at the true compliance, that's where you get the sustainable performance. So that danger of thinking is leading the industry into more of a reactive mindset, because we are afraid to innovate, we are afraid to use new technologies because we think it might be against the compliance, which is the danger in this mindset. And this is why I'm so interested in new technologies and the developments. Because we can really leverage not only AI, but a lot of technologies in our industry and really make things much more sustainable, faster, reliable using them. So that's why I think I look at it as speed versus compliance is an excuse. The real issue is behind data visibility, poor risk understanding, slow decision making. Those are the real issues, not necessarily the speed.
Yeah, I think if you sort of stuck in this mindset, you would say, okay, if speed is bad, if fast is bad, what is good then? Slow, so compliance and slow is good. I think when people talk about speed, that they assume that there couldn't be thoroughness in decision making, in actions taking. That's why speed got this bad reputation.
Correct.
But in reality, it's not really, it's sort of empirical conclusion that not always true, right? And we try to shake it off and figure out, okay, we want it to be done quickly. We want speed, but we want also compliance and thoroughness and rigor. And the question is, it's not about, okay, how do we get speed out of the equation, but how do we achieve both together and get this compliance quickly and get lots of things that today done very slow manner. How do we speed them up, accelerate them? So on this point, how do you think about technology overall in this equation? Like, how does it enable speed and compliance? And if you want to transition, specifically talking about AI in this context, what are your thoughts? Like, how do you see this changing with this just massive wave of at least expectations, right? We haven't seen maybe all the impacts yet of AI, but definitely expectations are pretty bombastic.
Yeah. So if you look at technology, when done right, should make compliance invisible. And what do I mean by that? Think about automated data capture. In the past, I come from an era that we had a lot of paper. We still have in some companies, but think about automatic data capture, smart workflows, and predictive alerts. These are all happening by itself and invisibly controlling your quality. It used to be we were tracking the paper, looking at these signatures. Is this done? Is this done correctly? Now everything is flowing invisibly, and that's what I mean by when done right, technology should be invisible. So it can also help you from, as I mentioned, as I started my conversation, turn your reactive mindset into a proactive mindset. If you have the data, you can have the patterns, you can look at how to predict deviations, how to predict issues and challenges up front before you actually have them. And that helps you with your quality mindset as well. But coming back to AI, to be very honest, implementing AI is much harder than traditional automation, right? So it requires engineering efforts, data integrity, life cycle management. So there's the whole industry is trying to really get there right now, but it is difficult. And in my opinion, most early AI pilots failed because they were treated like experiments. So they were not integrated with enterprise systems. They were always looked as something on top, right? But if you integrate with your systems, if you create the right governance structure, data structure, and rethink your process, those are the three important areas. You can actually implement AI very successfully as well. That's why I'm really interested in AI, how we can look at the processes very differently now.
So where do you think this catalyst will be when we start feeling these breakthroughs that everyone is expecting? Because I know lots of companies are experimenting with AI in quality space as well. But you can see again that there's like tons of statistics. There was recently this MIT survey and other publications that it's not there. It's definitely underwhelming for now. Where do you think this catalyst will be with the AI potentially producing this productivity alpha, whatever we want to call it?
Yeah, so there are a lot of reasons why it didn't happen very quickly. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm. You are right about that. But if you look at the people adoption and then how ready our systems and data are, I'm not surprised. I was at the Pharma Manufacturing World Summit in May. In Boston, and all the experts in the field from quality, from IT, digital counterparts, we were discussing, and every company have data issues. So our systems and data are not ready, and that's going to be very important. And as I mentioned, there are three areas that we need to focus before we can start thinking about breakthroughs. The first is redesigning our processes, how we approach quality. The second one is the governance, how we govern AI. and then change in decision-making culture. So those three areas are, I think, super crucial for quality professionals to figure out before we can get to those breakthroughs. But breakthroughs are gonna come. I'm confident with that because
Yeah.
The level of the patterns that AI can detect, the level of gaps that human mind has that AI can actually fill in, is immense, and that will really help us make a big leap jump in how we look at quality.
Yeah.
But again, the foundation needs to happen, and companies stop looking at it as proof of concept projects, but take it as this is a real project I'm implementing, not on top of my QMS system, but integrating with QMS system, and really investing in it rather than looking at a fun project on the side.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think from, just to add from my side, many people underestimated how difficult it is to get
Yeah.
these models, projects up and running reliably. And, in some sense, these POCs, they work because they proved okay. It is not easy. So you
Yeah.
should try something different, and maybe just a matter of time before we go more pragmatic, less less I don't want to use word ambitious, but less fantasizing, more practical stuff. Like, let's just take this one process, cut it down into smaller pieces, automate each piece, evaluate every single step, make sure it's reliable, and start with this small change, and there's another one, another one, and obviously there is this accumulation of these improvements that would bring this big change.
Yeah.
Eventually, that will become visible for everyone. What about the people aspect of that? Another thing that I see at the conferences, people talk a lot, other than AI, is quality culture. And I always sort of curious when we use this terminology, right? How much people really understand what the other side is talking about, because it's such a broad term, culture overall, and specifically if you talk about quality culture, folks can mean different things by that. What's your take? Where you see, again, technology intersects with more traditional ways of enacting change in an organization?
So, in our industry, culture determines how people behave when the SOP doesn't cover something, right? As much as we want to be prescriptive in our SOPs, there are areas that it won't cover. There are things that will happen. It's not covered in the SOP. How do people take these situations? How do they react to that? And that's what culture is, basically. That's where the quality culture lies. I've seen that we romanticize culture a lot, right? A lot of posters and slogans and quality culture. It's a big thing now. But it's all about behaviors. When you come down to what it means, it's how your people behave, how they talk to each other, how they take on the challenges, how they work together. That's basically the culture itself. When it comes to technology, technology can be a big ally to shaping the culture itself. Having the right dashboards, metrics, digital workflows, you can actually shape the culture. It might sound very counterproductive. We are talking about behaviors, and then we are talking about technology shaping behaviors. But what I believe is there's a saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? We always heard that. What I think is technology can actually eat culture in the same way, in that sense. I know it sounds funny, but if you use the technology to your advantage, and you can actually see things disappearing by itself. I'll give you an example. We talked about, again, paper and how paper needs to be filled out on time, and there shouldn't be any missing information, right? That's how it used to be. Again, some companies still follow these rules. When you come to a technologic system, when you put the engineering controls in place that you cannot move forward before you fill out that paper, you will have timely recording, right? Everything is recorded in the system, and that culture starts shifting. Like there's no way you can do it, and you control it with engineering. Then culture accepts that this is how it works. Again, I oversimplify it, and I realize that. But at the same time, people need to realize that you can use culture to shape your, you can use technology to shape your culture. Again, that's not the only thing, and I'm not saying technology is the only way to shape culture, but it is a good tool and ally, as I mentioned, to shape the culture.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think you're right. This romantic view of culture, that's something that fully driven by values, but in reality, a big part of it is just a system that people either follow or not, and it's like laws, right? If you don't enforce parking regulation, nobody's going to pay parking anymore, and everyone just park for free. So you need to really give people tickets. I don't say that's necessarily, this sort of punitive way of doing things is the only way, but if you create a system where people see clearly, okay, the most comfortable, the most convenient path is the right path, you're going to be way more successful in changing the behavior, not just updating the posters, right, as you said, and bringing this espoused values of how you want people to behave. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Speaking about some hesitancy about AI from many people right now, right, specifically the impact of AI on entry-level employment. We know that I just looked up the statistics on this before starting this recording, that folks who are just out of college, they really see a dip in employment in comparison to other categories. So do you, first maybe a question, do you think that's truly AI, or is it something else, right? There's many other things going on right now. And just looking back at your career, right, it's definitely maybe unfair to compare when you were starting your career in this space. What would be your just advice to this early career students or former students that just came out into this world, and now it's a completely different world from even when they started their college, right? What they should do, how they should think about their career, and specifically for the context of quality. I remember I've heard many times people would say it's actually a challenge to attract people into quality space, young people into quality space. So do you see maybe it's an opportunity as well for the quality to bring some new blood into our ranks?
It's definitely a big interesting time. It's an inflection point, and I really believe that quality is becoming more and more interesting. It can be an advantage to us to get fresh new talent, maybe with different skill sets. But to your initial question, you are right. There is a reduction in hiring, and this is not only biopharma, this is across the board with AI, but it can be detrimental for our business because it can create an expertise crisis. I would like to quote my dear friend Jeremiah here. In one of my recent LinkedIn posts, I mentioned his article as well. He wrote an article on this, and I'm going to take some of the things that he said because I really believe and agree with him. If you don't have the expertise built into your organization, you create a hollow organization. If you cut that entry-level layer, how do people actually learn what is wrong, what is right, and like hands-on experience of doing something? As you mentioned, like things have changed quite a bit since I started, but when I started with batch record review, basic batch record review. I did validations, hands-on, a lot of work hands-on to be able to know what can go wrong. So if you don't want this hollow organization, what do you need to do? I think the solution is we need to change redesign the entry level work. So make it more developmental, use AI as an accelerator, not just a replacement for people. So you can create deviation simulations. For example, instead of waiting for people to have deviation over deviation, you can create simulations with AI, and you can train them on different situations. You can create a recall simulation with AI and work through that and make sure that they are part of that developmental work, and AI is not just replacing them. And I think this is very important. Again, Jeremiah mentions about mentorship and apprenticeship programs. In my past, I implemented these, and I truly believe in teaching what you learned in your past and what can go wrong, how you approach things. These are very important for young generations, and I think AI can actually make it faster and deeper than a mentor. So I guess in short, the question is not whether AI will replace entry-level work. It's whether we will redesign fast enough to preserve the talent and the skill set in our organizations. And I think it is super critical. Again, we don't want leaders in the future who doesn't know how things work. We want them to have a better understanding of the processes and how things can go wrong, what can go wrong, so that they can actually challenge AI as well at times.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think, maybe a stereotype, but you would expect that younger people be faster to pick up this technology just because they first go into consumer space, right? And you see them, I don't know, on TikTok and Instagram before they make into enterprise domain, and they could just have more experience of using these technologies, understanding, okay, how do you detect whether it's hallucination, where when AI is prone to hallucinations, and just be more skillful in making it work. Because human in the loop, that's another, I think, underestimation that the whole industry made, right? I'm talking about the whole AI industry, is how sort of it became a band-aid, but it's really pretty lousy band-aid to the problems that we have. You really need more than that, or really well-trained human that would be skillful working with AI. It's the same skill as Excel, right? So that everyone can really do all these pivot tables and VLOOKUPs. You really have people who just have proclivity to do this. It's like light kind of programming skills. I think the same is going to be with AI.
I agree, and you gave a good example. I come from a generation that you learn how to do VLOOKUPs and all the Excel skills, right? And it's important, how you learn some of these things to know how things work. AI can today do it very easily, right? You can ask AI to do a lot of things. But if it hallucinates, if it makes any mistakes, if you don't know how it works, and if you cannot see through the trees, you might actually have issues. So that's why expertise is very critical. Again, especially for our industry where human health is at stake.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right, Burak, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much, and I hope we'll see you again as a guest here. Thank you very much. And
thank you, Nikolai.